Good day, everyone. This is Princess Christine G. Gonzalez, a first-year Bachelor of Elementary Education. My discussion for today is all about the heredity influence on development. I'll be focusing on the genetic abnormalities and its causes. So let's start. At first, I would like to begin with this question. How does life begins? Have you ever thought about it? If you don't, I will be explaining it to you quickly. But in order for us to understand well about human life, we must start with the fundamental or the smallest things that human body started to form and develop. Ovum released by a woman's ovary and its way to the uterus via fallopian tube, then fertilized by a man's sperm which will form the fertilized egg called zygote. We know that every month, women get their monthly period to prepare their body for possible pregnancy. And during that days, they release the ovum to the uterus via fallopian tube. At kapag ang isang babae at ang isang lalaki ay nagkaroon ng intercourse or pagtatalik at ang male ay nag-release ng kanyang sperm cell na makakapag-fertilize sa ovum ng isang babae, dito mabubuo yung tinatawag na zygote or the fertilized egg. This zygote contains hereditary from both male and female parents after they release genetic material. So basically, heredity is about how traits are passed down from parent to offspring. Lahat tayo may different traits and characteristics, such as the patterns in our body, our size, or color of our eyes. All of these are hereditary information provided by the father's sperm and the mother's ovum. And these traits are coded in our DNA, which we inherited from our mother and our father. Since ang DNA ay nagko-codes para magkaroon ng mga traits na meron tayo, ang mga cells natin ay hindi magfa-function without it. Dahil ang ating DNA ay nagde-determine kung gaano tayo katangkad, anong kulay ng ating mata, or ng ating buhok, at kahit risk of certain diseases pa. Portions of DNA make up genes. And genes can code for protein, and protein can have a huge role in expressing a trait. So now, you have a lot of DNA, and kapag ang mga ito ay pinagsama-sama at naging compacted sa isa't isa, it can be organized into a unit called a chromosome. Human cell contains 46 elongated thread-like bodies called chromosomes. It means that lahat ng cells sa ating katawan ay mayroong 46 chromosomes. We receive 23 chromosomes from our mother and another 23 chromosomes from our father to give us 46 chromosomes, and that is our genetic code. These chromosomes make up muscles, bones, organs, and other bodily structures. So let's do the recap of the big picture. A single chromosome contains genes. These genes contain portions of DNA. DNA is made up of the nucleotides, the basis of nucleotides that sequence them and that makes the difference in coding for traits. Now, we already know how genes play a vital role and how important it is in human development. But now, the second question is, what would happen if the genetic materials do not work properly? Sometimes, there is a mutation, a change in a gene or genes. The mutation changes to the genes for making a protein. So the protein does not work properly or is missing entirely. This can cause a medical condition called genetic abnormalities, which will result to genetic disorders. Genetic abnormalities are conditions caused by the changes to the genes or chromosomes. Inherited disorders are caused by gene mutations. This includes disorders such as cystic fibrosis, sickle cell disease, and Tay-Sachs disease. Then, what are the causes of genetic abnormalities? Genetic abnormalities can cause by mutations in DNA genes. A person can have changes or mutations in a gene that can cause many issues for them. Sometimes changes cause little differences, like hair color. Other changes in genes can cause health problems. Mutations in a gene usually end up causing that particular gene copy to not do its job the way it normally should. Since we have two copies of every gene, typically there's still a normal working copy of the gene. In these cases, usually nothing out of the ordinary happens since the body can still do the job it's need to do. This is an example of autosomal recessive trait. Many types of chromosomes abnormalities exist, but they can be categorized as either structural or numerical. Structural abnormalities are when part of an individual chromosome is missing, extra, switched to another chromosome, or turned upside down. While the numerical abnormalities are whole chromosomes either missing from or extra to the normal pair. Some genetic disorders are passed down from parents through their genes. Basically, since ang ating mga traits, physical appearance, characteristics, and behavior ay nai-inherit or namamana natin sa ating mga magulang, other disorders ay possible din na ma-inherit mula sa kanila. Kung both parent natin or even isa lang sa kanila ay carrier ng specific disease. So, for the last part, we might be curious about someone na mayroong genetic disorder gawa ng genetic abnormalities. Now, I will explain the 5 most common genetic disorders and how it influences the development of a child. The first one is the Down syndrome. Typically, the nucleus of an individual cell contains 23 pairs of chromosomes. But Down syndrome occurs when the 21st chromosome is copied an extra time in all or some cells. Kadalasan sa mga taong mayroong Down syndrome ay may mabababang katalinuhan sa kadahilan ng ang kanilang pag-iisip ay hindi normal na na-develop dahil sa pagbabago ng number ng kanilang chromosomes. The second one is the thalassemia. Thalassemia is a family of hereditary genetic conditions that limits the amount of hemoglobin an individual can naturally produce. With any form of thalassemia, usually some severe anemia. So, this genetic disorder is commonly inherited from parent dahil ito ay nade-develop na bago pa ipanganak ang isang bata. The third one is cystic fibrosis or the cystic fibrosis. It is a chronic genetic condition that causes patients to reduce thick and sticky mucus, inhibiting the respiratory, digestive, and reproductive systems. In the United States, there are close 300,000 people living with cystic fibrosis, and they frequently develop greater health problems. Ang sakit na ito ay dulot ng pagbabago or mutation sa gene, at once na magkaroon ka ng sakit na ito ay mahirap nang gamutin or mananatili na itong chronic. The fourth one is called Tay-Sachs disease. This condition is caused by chromosomal defects similar to that Down syndrome. It is irreversibly fatal when found in children. This disease is fatal. Nade-develop ito sa unang 3 to 6 months ng isang baby. Then, within months to a few years, they lose the ability to see, hear, and move. By age of 2, most start having seizures. And unfortunately, children with the condition usually do not live past 5 years of age. The last one is sickle cell anemia. Sickle cell disease causes red blood cells to change from their usual donut shape to sickle shape. This causes clump together and become caught in blood vessels, triggering severe pain and serious complications. Ito ay kadalasang namamanang sakit sa dugo at nangyayari ito dahil sa mutation ng gene. Ang mga taong mayroon nito ay may isang kopya ng hindi gumaganang gene at nagpapakita ng normal at abnormal na hemoglobin. That will be all for the genetic abnormalities. I hope you understand and learn something from my presentation. Thank you for listening.